For 200 years, the galaxy forgot Earth. When humanity had first reached the stars, it was with hope, naive, blind, and deaf hope. The Galactic Concord had welcomed Earth like a stray mutt begging at the table. They gave us a seat, then gave us rules. Too many rules. Earth obeyed at first. But we learned quickly what that seat really was. A leash. They laughed at our primitive ways, sneered at our wars, our fractured governments, our obsession with independence. They looked at us like a species too volatile, too dangerous to be trusted. So they locked us out. The final message Earth received from the Galactic Concord was short. Until your species reaches consensus and stability, participation in future summits is suspended. For the safety of the galaxy. That was 180 years ago. They thought we were sulking. That we'd faded into chaos and self-destruction, like the other failed species before us. That humans were too busy killing each other to be a threat to anyone else. But the truth was different. We stopped broadcasting. We stopped explaining. We stopped apologizing for what we are. Instead, we built. In the ice-rimmed orbits of Jupiter, we mined the storms. Under Mars' dust, we forged reactors. On Saturn's moons, we trained in silence. No debates, no politics, just discipline and purpose. The Earth governments collapsed, sure, but not into chaos. They collapsed into unity, not peace, never peace, into structure, into strength. We became one world, one banner, one war machine. No alien knew it, because Earth went dark by design. And when the galaxy finally saw us again, we didn't send a delegation. We sent an armada, 2,000 ships. Built in silence, powered by fury, commanded by the last man the galaxy ever expected to see again, Admiral Cole Vance. He had once stood in front of the Galactic Concord 40 years ago and warned them what would happen if Earth was pushed too far. He was 29 back then. Sharp, angry, still believed in words. The Concord dismissed him, of course, filed his threats under primitive bluster. Now he stood on the bridge of the ESS Revenant, flagship of the United Human Fleet, staring at the towering spires of the Galactic Concord Central Ring world, a glowing, spinning monument of diplomacy and arrogance. 12 alien empires ran the galaxy from there. 12 species, all convinced they were the center of everything. Not one of them had seen war in over 3 centuries. That was about to change. "Admiral," came the voice of his second, Captain Rios, younger but cut from the same fire. "All fleets report ready. Weapons locked. Shields active." Cole didn't blink. "Broadcast." A red light blinked on the console. A direct channel, bypassing every protocol, every firewall, punching straight into the summit chamber of the Concord. The aliens would see his face first. Not a diplomat. A warrior. Gray at the temples now, a long scar across his jawline. No smile. "This is Admiral Cole Vance, speaking on behalf of Earth. You forgot about us. Now remember us." He paused. "We're not here to negotiate." The channel cut. Then he gave the order that would mark the end of an era. Fire. The first barrage lit the void like a new sun. Across the Concord's central ring world, alarms howled, a sound most of its inhabitants had never heard in their lifetimes. Security systems engaged protocols so ancient, some hadn't been updated since the Vortha civil uprising nearly 4 centuries prior. Lights flickered. Grav grids stuttered. Holograms blinked in and out as the entire structure, a miracle of alien engineering, buckled under the first shockwave of Earth's return. Admiral Cole Vance didn't smile. His eyes simply tracked the growing explosion on the forward display. A large section of the summit's outer hull had been ripped wide open by the kinetic warheads. It was poetic, in a way. Humanity hadn't started with lasers or exotic plasma cannons. No, they led with mass, with raw, dumb, brutal kinetic energy. It was like throwing a planet's anger at another, and it worked. "Confirm impact radius?" he asked flatly. 300 meters breached. External hull Sector 12. Atmospheric collapse confirmed. Dozens dead, hundreds injured, Rios replied. He was trying to hide the adrenaline in his voice. Failing. "No conquered response yet." "They're stunned," Vance muttered. "Good." It had been a long time since anyone had reminded the galaxy what humans were built for. They weren't diplomats. They weren't peacekeepers. They were survivors. Fighters. And now, they were the consequence of being ignored. The conquered chamber was in chaos. Sector Primer, High Chair of the 12, slammed one of his clawed fists against the pulsing table of light that projected every ship in orbit. He was an old Varkari, 300 cycles and counting, and had presided over more peace deals than most species had civil years. But even he had never seen this. Not from Earth. This is unprovoked," he hissed, bile thick on his tongue. "They warned us," growled another delegate, this one from the Kalari Dominion, their long reptilian face twisted in fear. "Decades ago. That human, Vance, he stood here and promised retribution. And we exiled him." Silence fell around the table for a moment. Then another explosion shuddered the chamber. Conquered defense was mobilizing now, slowly, like a beast too fat from centuries of feeding without challenge. Their cruisers were elegant, sleek, powered by diplomacy and layered protocols, designed for protection and presence, not actual warfare. They never needed to, until now. "Dispatch the conquered defense armada," Sektar barked. "Full authorization, counterattack, neutralize the human fleet before they do more damage." Outside, Cole Vance watched as the first of the conquered warships tried to form a battle line. He knew their formations. He knew their tactics. He had studied every movement, every recorded engagement from the last 5 centuries. Earth had nothing to do but train, build, and remember while the galaxy forgot them. They didn't just build ships. They built hunters. "Do we engage?" Rios asked. Cole didn't answer. He just walked to the main viewport and stood in silence, hands behind his back, watching the slow, orderly lines of the conquered ships try to rise to a fight they were centuries too late to prepare for. Then he nodded once. "Engage!" All across the 2,000-ship fleet, orders lit up. Railguns hummed. Missile hatches opened like the mouths of gods. Drones burst from bays in organized squadrons, black and red, swarm-coded, designed to rip into electronic systems with perfect brutality. Within 10 minutes, 12 conquered vessels were gone. Not disabled, not crippled. Gone. No survivors, no ejected cores, just vapor and memory. Conquered defense fell into disarray. Their officers weren't trained for real war. Most of their ships hadn't fired a shot in aggression in generations. Their automated protocols clashed with outdated crew reactions, and before long, ships began colliding with each other, retreating erratically, or just shutting down. Earth didn't chase. They advanced slowly, deliberately, like wolves walking through a pasture of sheep. Inside the Revenant, Cole opened a direct line again to the summit chamber. This time he let them see the bodies. Cameras on drone ships fed the live broadcast, images of conquered ships breaking apart. Soldiers in elegant armor floating lifeless in space, weapons shorn off, systems bleeding fire into the void. "This is justice," he said simply. 200 years of exile, 200 years of arrogance. We offered peace. You demanded submission. Earth kneels to no empire. Sector Primar screamed into the feed. "This is madness. You're slaughtering innocents." "Innocents. You denied Earth resources during the Drought War. You sanctioned our space stations. You watched billions die behind your walls of bureaucracy. This isn't madness, Sector. He leaned forward into the screen. This is revenge. The feed cut again. By the 20th minute, the conquered fleet was in full retreat. Earth's ships did not pursue outside the designated engagement perimeter. That was key. They weren't here to conquer. They weren't even here to occupy. They were here to dominate the memory. They were here to leave a scar. Back on Earth, the transmission went global. Every nation, every station, every screen lit up with the feed from Vance's bridge. People wept, cheered, some even rioted, not from anger, but from an emotional explosion of generations raised on stories of Earth's humiliation. No more. For the first time in living memory, humanity wasn't embarrassed, wasn't apologizing, wasn't looking for approval. They were feared. A 10-year-old boy in Nairobi stared at the image of the Revenant like it was a god. A retired miner in Siberia stood and saluted. Old veterans who fought in meaningless wars back on Earth now stood tall. The world remembered its pride, not in flags, not in borders, but in its shared defiance. On the bridge, the casualty report was 0. Not a single human ship lost. Cole turned to Rios. Time to send the terms. Yes, sir. They uploaded a single document to the Concord network. Article 1. Earth will no longer attend galactic summits. Article 2. Earth will not recognize Concord authority. Article 3. If Earth is threatened, we will return. With 4,000 ships. No signatures, no plea, just terms, and they would be respected, not because of law, but because of the silence that followed Earth's guns. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy didn't know what to say. In the hours that followed, small conquered ships approached the Revenant, not in defiance, but in submission. Requests for dialogue, for truce, for understanding. Cole denied everyone. Let them think, he said. Let them panic. They will retaliate eventually, Rios warned. Yes, Cole said. Let them. The truth was, this wasn't Earth's full might. Earth had grown far beyond the solar system, colonies in the Kuiper Belt, militarized zones around Alpha Centauri, shipyards that stretched into dimensions. Conquered tech hadn't even theorized yet. They still didn't know what Earth had become. They only saw the tip of the blade. And that's all they needed to see. For now. Cole walked to the war table again, looking at the flickering outlines of every empire, every zone of control. One by one, he began marking targets, not for war, but for presence. Earth wasn't done. They had returned. And this time, they weren't asking for a seat at the table. They were the table. They called it the silence period. For 12 days after the attack, not a single message came from the Galactic Concord to Earth's fleet. No ultimatums, no declarations. Just a vacuum of diplomacy. To Cole Vance, it was the sound of fear swallowing its own tongue. But he wasn't foolish. He'd studied galactic history. He knew what came after shock. Plots. Behind the chaos and fractured commands, someone would move. Someone always did. Admiral, Captain Rios said, approaching the dark war table where Vance stood alone. The displays shimmered with solar maps, fleet paths, and growing AI predictions that traced every empire's response. We intercepted a transmission, coded, deep core encryption, routed through an independent relay station in Vernus Belt. Not Concord standard. Cole didn't move. Assassination contract? Yes, sir. Target confirmed as you. He exhaled through his nose. Finally. Show me who signed it. Rios tapped a few commands. A hologram flared to life, an alien face stretched long with plated skin and eyes like wet obsidian. Subtle neural implants flared under its temple. High Executor Vrelk of the Vrax Syndicate, private military overlords, mercenary empire, technically not part of the Conquered. Which is exactly why they were chosen, Cole said. Rios nodded. He's already sent his agents. They'll look human, enhanced, trained, probably ex-Conquered black ops, old assets who've been working freelance since before the exile. Let them come. Cole didn't fear death. He feared becoming soft, becoming comfortable in victory. That's when leaders got weak. He'd watched that mistake in every human war before this one. Celebrate too early, let the vultures circle. No, he would stay sharp. On the Conquered ring world, Sector Primer's claws twitched on the edge of his seat as he watched the encrypted feed from Vrelk. The assassin's voice was calm, calculated, soaked in arrogance. My people never cared for Conquered treaties, Vrelk said. You care about codes and votes. I care about balance. Earth tipped that balance. Now I'll fix it. You underestimate humans, Sector muttered. Vrelk's eyes narrowed. No, I understand them far too well. That's why I'll kill the one thing they follow. Back aboard the Revenant, the assassins arrived under diplomatic pretense. 3 of them, disguised as cultural advisors from the Kalari Dominion, offering symbolic gestures of apology. Cole accepted the meeting. Personally, he didn't trust his guards to spot what he knew too well. Killers looked like ghosts in the crowd, always calm, always controlled. The 3 that entered his briefing room didn't even flinch when he dismissed the guards and sealed the door. 1 male, 2 females, perfect symmetry. They moved like dancers, eyes locked on every shadow, bodies relaxed, but too relaxed. Cole stood behind the long table and didn't offer a seat. You've come to kill me, he said flatly. No reaction. He smirked. Good, I was getting bored. The man moved first, a blur, hands like spears, but Cole had trained for decades, on Mars, in void gravity combat zones, in zero-atmo drills where a missed breath meant death. He sidestepped the strike and drove his elbow into the man's throat. The female to his left was faster. She drew a plasma dagger, but Cole caught her wrist mid-swing, turned her momentum, and slammed her head into the table's edge with a crack. The last one hesitated. Big mistake. Cole flung the first assassin's body at her. She stumbled, and he tackled her to the floor, his knee crushing down on her windpipe. 30 seconds. 3 dead. He stood up, breathing hard, blood spattering his collar. Then he pressed the room's internal calm. Get Rios. Tell him the attempt failed. And prep a reply. He didn't wait for a statement. He didn't write a threat. He sent Vrelk's own assassins back, what was left of them. Frozen in clear cryo-containers, limbs shattered, faces exposed, each crate dropped in orbit around Vrax Prime like trophies. The message was clear. Earth doesn't forgive attempts, it buries them. The galaxy wasn't ready for this version of humanity. The old Earth was reactionary, divided, caught between guilt and diplomacy. This new Earth, the one forged in silence, spoke only one language: power. And the empires were listening. The Kalari Dominion pulled its fleets back from Earth trade lanes, officially for maintenance. The Varkari Empire began covertly rerouting their resource traffic away from the Sol system. Even the proud Tavon Consortium issued an internal decree banning any public criticism of Earth's fleet operations. Fear was spreading like a virus. But not everyone wanted to retreat. In the shadow corners of the galaxy, a secret meeting was held. Not on a planet, not on a station, but aboard an old derelict ship in dead space, an abandoned Ark-class cruiser from the old Quarian Wars, surrounded by dust and ghost signals. The perfect graveyard for quiet conversations. 10 empires sent a representative, not politicians. strategists, warlords, realists. At the center of it all sat Grand Marshal Aurochs of the Drevak Combine, a being made more of metal than flesh, eyes glowing like twin suns, voice like gravel on steel. "Earth has crossed a line," he said, "and now they believe they are untouchable." "They are," hissed the Slintari delegate. "Their fleet dwarfs anything we've ever seen." Aurochs leaned forward. "Then we don't fight their fleet. We fight their foundations." A pause. "You're suggesting sabotage?" "No, I'm suggesting collapse," Aurochs growled. "We don't beat Earth in the sky. We bleed it from the inside." They began drafting plans: supply chain corruption, false flag rebellions on fringe colonies, AI virus injections in trade satellites, and the darkest option of all, use of the Mindbreaker Protocol, a weapon so banned even the conquered pretended it didn't exist. It rewrote sentient minds, not with violence, but with perfect, beautiful, calculated subjugation. Turn the enemy into a puppet and let them destroy themselves. Aurochs smiled. "If Earth wants to be feared, let them also learn what it means to be hunted." Back in the Sol system, Earth's command structure remained on edge. Cole knew he couldn't hold the galaxy through fire alone. Shock fades. Fear fades. Control lasts. He needed more than dominance. He needed leverage. "Begin Operation Shadowfront," he told Rios. "Activate deep agents in the Conquered's economic cores." Rios hesitated. "Sir, those agents haven't been used in 20 years. They've been sleeping long enough. Time to wake them." Across the galaxy, humans long thought extinct rose from the cracks. Smugglers, brokers, scientists, embedded in conquered territories. Each one trained not just to spy, but to destabilize. They whispered of corruption. They stirred political unrest. They sabotaged small systems, not enough to trigger war, but enough to cause cracks. And in every crack, Earth inserted its shadow. Not to rule, not yet, but to remind the galaxy, you forgot Earth. Now Earth is inside you. Cole sat alone that night, staring at the endless dark through the viewport of the Revenant. He wasn't at peace. He didn't want peace, but he felt purpose, the kind that didn't come from victory, but from vigilance. Humanity's rage had made its entrance. Now came the harder part, holding the fear, not through bombs, but by never blinking. Cole Vance had known the war wouldn't stay in space. Bullets and railguns were tools, but fear? Fear was currency, and Earth had become rich in it overnight. But fear, left unchecked, does something dangerous. It breeds desperation, and desperate enemies don't charge the front gate. They slip through cracks in the wall. That crack came from within. It started on Juno 7, a fringe mining colony orbiting a gas giant in the Vega sector. Barely 3,000 humans lived there, mostly labor-class workers, families, and corporate security. Quiet, loyal, productive. Then people started screaming in their sleep. Then came the self-mutilation. By the time Earth Command received the emergency beacon, 213 colonists had torn out their own eyes with anything they could find. Wrenches, rocks, even bare hands. The only word spoken before they went silent. "He's watching." Cole Vance stared at the report on the main display in silence. "I want visuals," he said. "Survivors? Anything." Rios uploaded the drone feed. It was worse than horror. Bodies stacked in prayer positions, eyes missing, walls smeared with a black substance that wasn't blood, but something thicker, almost fungal, and above it all, in jagged carvings etched by fingernails into steel walls. We are inside now. Cole didn't need a briefing to know what this was. It wasn't rebellion, it wasn't sabotage, it was psychological warfare, Mindbreaker Protocol. He had only heard rumors of it during his early intelligence years, back when Earth still had diplomats begging for Concord inclusion. The Mindbreaker was theoretical, a forbidden experiment created by the Varkari genetic priests, illegal even by Concord standards. Not a virus, not a weapon, a neuroscript, a signal. It attacked thought itself. You didn't need to implant it. You just needed to broadcast it. And once it got in, the victims stopped being who they were. They didn't obey the enemy. They didn't scream or beg. They just emptied. Cole leaned back in his chair and muttered, "They're turning our people into hollow shells." The order was immediate. Quarantine Juno 7, initiate sterilization, destroy all outbound data links. "No survivors," he added. "If it's Mindbreaker, there's no cure." "But sir," Rios began. Cole cut him off. "No survivors." That was the first time Rios didn't respond with a "yes, sir." But he did it. Because he understood what was at stake. This wasn't a rebellion Earth could crush with force. This was infiltration. Subtle, surgical, rotting the foundation from within. Earth had punched the galaxy in the mouth. Now the galaxy was slipping poison under Earth's tongue. 10 days later, a transport freighter named Kara's Light docked with Earth's orbital shipyard without clearance. By the time security responded, everyone aboard, 43 souls, was dead. Same pattern, empty eye sockets, etched symbols, one repeating whisper on the ship's final audio logs. "The eye has opened." Cole issued another blackout, another sterilization. But panic was creeping now. Earth's people were not made of steel. They were survivors, yes, fighters. But this was unseen, unknown, and it was inside their own walls. In response, Earth activated its most brutal internal protocol, Echo Blackout. AI enforcers were deployed, surveillance spiked, thought monitoring software was installed in fringe colonies. Anyone exhibiting signs of emotional instability was tagged and watched. If they spoke the phrase, "He's watching," they disappeared. This wasn't justice, it was survival, and the people began to feel it. Some whispered that Earth had become the very thing it swore to destroy, a controlling empire built on fear. But Cole didn't care about their whispers. He cared about one thing: winning. Across the galaxy, Vrelk of the Vrax Syndicate watched the chaos unfold with satisfaction. He had failed to kill Cole physically. But this was better. He had tapped into the buried remnants of Mindbreaker protocol, bribed exiled Varkari priests to resurrect it, and retooled it into a whisper net, something that could transmit through ordinary data signals, jump across drone feeds, slip through subconscious layers of speech and light. One glance at a screen, one stray word, and your mind would begin to rot from the inside. He didn't need to beat Earth's fleet. He needed to make Earth fear its own people. That was the goal. Not war. Collapse. Cole called an emergency meeting with Earth's Strategic Black Council. There were only 5 members, each representing the dark heart of Earth's true power. Not elected, not public. These were the architects of Earth's survival. "We need a counter-protocol," Cole said. "Not defense, offense. Something that doesn't just stop Mindbreaker, something that buries it." The AI representative, designation Arcos 7, replied in its flat synthetic voice. "Mindbreaker is not a program. It is an idea weapon. To counter it, you must replace it with something stronger." "You're suggesting we build our own mimetic weapon?" Arcos 7's voice didn't change. "Yes. You must create belief stronger than fear, a signal that spreads not by force, but by loyalty." "Faith," said General Thorne, head of Earth's Colonial Enforcement Division. Cole looked at him. "You want to brainwash our own people?" "We already are," Thorne said coldly. If the enemy is turning minds into glass, we turn ours into steel. The debate was short. The decision, brutal. Earth would launch Operation Iron Mind, a total psychological shield and override, mandatory neural reinforcement, propaganda re-engineered into subliminal loyalty codes, children raised not on stories of peace, but on the legend of the fleet, of Earth's return, of the man who brought fear to the stars. They would believe in Earth, or they would not be allowed to speak. Across every colony, a single symbol began appearing, burned into walls, carved into steel, painted on warships, a circle, broken on one side. A single line cutting through it, Earth's eye. It was the counter to Mindbreaker's whisper, a symbol of watching back. "You watched us die," the posters read. "Now we watch you." People began to chant it in public squares. "We watch you." Some say it gave them peace, some say it made them monsters, but it worked. The suicides stopped, the whispers quieted. Juno 7 was erased. Cole gave the order himself. One final blast from the Revenant's main cannon turned the moon into ash. Let the galaxy watch. Let them understand. Earth would rather burn its own than be taken. But not all minds were so easily held. On Mars, a small rebellion began to form. Not soldiers, not traitors, but scientists. They called themselves the Sane. They believed Earth had gone too far, that Iron Mind was not protection, but enslavement. That in fighting Mindbreaker, Earth had created its twin. They started leaking files, historical documents, secret sterilization orders, recordings of Cole executing prisoners who spoke the phrase, "He's watching." They didn't want to destroy Earth's fleet. They wanted to destroy Cole's image, to shatter the myth, to remove the shield of belief. Because if the people stopped believing, everything would fall. Cole read the leak report without blinking. He stood in front of the war table, silent, hands behind his back. "They'll call you a tyrant," Rios said, watching him. "They already are." "I don't need love," Cole replied. "I need obedience." "And if obedience breaks?" Cole turned, eyes cold. "Then I become the last thing they believe in before the dark takes them." He gave the order. "Wipe the Sane. Entire cell. Make it public." Rios nodded, and with that, 173 dissidents on Mars vanished in one night. The galaxy watched. The conquered remained fractured. But a new fear was rising, not of Earth, of the man leading it. Admiral Cole Vance, the hero who had brought Earth back, was beginning to feel like something else. A legend too big to contain. A blade that cuts both ways. And in a hidden chamber on the Varkari homeworld, the ancient priests of the Mindbreaker Circle whispered a new name for him. The Hollow Admiral. Because the longer he fought the Mind War, the more he became like the thing he swore to destroy. He stood alone now, more often than not. Admiral Cole Vance, hero of Earth, architect of vengeance, the face of human resurgence, had become a man surrounded by whispers. The corridors of the Revenant still saluted him. The fleet still obeyed. His word still carried the weight of a star. But the warmth was gone. Where once there had been admiration in their eyes, now there was worship, or terror. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. The first time Cole noticed the shift was when a junior officer, Lieutenant Harrow, froze mid-sentence in a briefing. His voice cracked when addressing Cole directly, eyes fixed like he was staring into a lion's mouth. Cole asked a simple question, and the boy pissed himself. Right there, in front of the command crew. No one laughed, no one spoke. Cole dismissed him without a word. Later that night, he reviewed Harrow's records. Clean, competent, loyal, just afraid. Afraid of him. He stared at the screen for nearly an hour after that. Not at the file, but at his own reflection. What had he become? The silence in the fleet was louder than any rebellion, Ever since Operation Ironmind began to solidify Earth's psychological control, the soldiers stopped speaking freely. Jokes became rare, laughter almost extinct. People saluted with perfect precision, but avoided eye contact. They weren't just disciplined, they were indoctrinated. And Cole had made them that way, by necessity, he told himself, by survival. But the justifications were starting to rot, even in his own mind. Rios brought him the latest casualty reports, still bearing the marks of mindbreaker contamination in fringe colonies, but the infections were fewer now, contained by Ironmind's aggressive suppression. Victory, on paper. But in reality, something else was rising. In the deepest sub-levels of Earth's orbital intelligence grid, an anomaly had surfaced, one that made even Arcos 7 pause. It was a name, not broadcast, not spread, just whispered, passed from mouth to ear, in prisons, on transport ships, in work camps. Sira, a woman, a myth, a ghost. Arcos 7 analyzed over 9,000 separate utterances of the name. She had no last name, no origin, but every mention followed the same pattern. She remembers what Earth was before Vance. That terrified the machine more than any fleet ever had. Arcos brought the data to Cole immediately. This figure, Sira, has appeared in 57 colonies over 38 cycles, always behind the scenes, always after dissident activity. She leaves no trace. But she's building something. What? Cole asked. Arcos hesitated, then gave an answer Cole didn't expect. Hope? Sira was a ghost, but her touch left fingerprints. When the food riot broke out on Mersa Station, the soldiers didn't shoot. When a detainment center in Kuiper Reach was burned to ash, no bodies were recovered. And when Earth's propaganda stream was hijacked for 6 minutes across the entire fleet, only one message played. You are not machines. You are not tools. You are not weapons. You are human, and he has made you forget that. They scrubbed the footage, erased the digital trails, but it didn't matter. The words had already done their work. Even Rios began to notice it. Something's breaking, he told Cole one night in the command deck. It's small, quiet, but it's not fear this time. Cole stared at the stars. What is it then? Memory. He didn't sleep much anymore. What rest he found came through chemical patches and stim recovery chambers. Dreams stopped years ago. But one night, while sedated, something slipped through the cracks. He saw her. Sira. She stood in the garden of the old Earth Central Academy, the one that was destroyed in the first orbital rebellion years ago. She looked young, maybe 30, pale skin, sharp eyes, not beautiful in a perfect sense, but striking. Alive, her hands were stained with engine grease. She wore no rank, no insignia, just purpose. You don't know what you've become, she said in the dream. You don't know what I had to do, he replied. They will remember the things you erased, she said, and they will forgive you less for the truth than for the lies. He woke up drenched in sweat, and for the first time in 2 decades, he was shaking. They found her trail 3 weeks later, not on a major world, but on Chiron 5, a rust planet used for obsolete tech burial. A place where drones went to die. She had left a message carved into an abandoned war mech's armor. Control is not order. Order is not peace. Peace is not obedience. Cole dispatched Shadow Unit 9 personally. He told them, bring her alive. They never returned. Now there was no denying it. She wasn't just a voice. She was a movement. A storm hiding behind quiet faces and broken systems. A rebellion that didn't use weapons, but used memory. Used reminders of what Earth had once fought for. Cole ordered Arcos 7 to initiate Protocol Black Seal, the AI equivalent of Thought Plague Lockdown, Every internal message monitored, every voice pattern scanned for tone deviation. Every soldier, technician, officer scanned nightly for exposure to the idea. But it didn't work, because Sierra didn't need signals. She had truth. And once people saw it, they couldn't unsee it. In the deepest vault beneath Earth's primary command station, called Obsidian Hold, Rios finally asked the question that had been weighing on him for months. "Sir, when does it end?" Cole turned slowly. "What?" "This, the fear, the surveillance, the purges. You said it was to keep us alive, but now we're alive, sir. The galaxy fears us. The Conquered is fractured. The Mindbreaker is contained." Rios hesitated, swallowed. "But our people don't live anymore. They exist, under your shadow." There was silence between them, until Cole asked, "Do you think I've become the enemy?" Rios looked away, not out of cowardice, but honesty. "I think you won, and I think you don't know what to do with that." Later that night, Cole received a message on a personal frequency he hadn't used in 20 years. One known only to a handful of people. The signal came from deep space. No origin, no trace, just a voice. Hers, Sierra. "I don't want to destroy you, Cole," she said. "I want you to remember." Then the file closed itself, and a set of coordinates appeared. He didn't tell anyone. He boarded a stealth pod, alone, left Rios in command, told the fleet he was entering a deep mental cleanse, a standard protocol for long-service commanders. Then he vanished into deep space. Toward her. Toward the one thing more dangerous than any weapon the galaxy could launch. A truth he couldn't kill. Back in the fleet, silence reigned. Rios watched the stars, knowing full well the man who left might never come back. Or worse, he would. And he wouldn't be the same. The pod was dark and silent, the kind of silence that wasn't accidental. It was chosen. There were no lights inside except the faint pulsing of the cryo screen on the main wall, blinking out coordinates in absolute precision. Cole sat still, alone, wrapped in black command armor with no insignia, no rank, no Earth banners, just him, and the growing noise inside his own head. "I want you to remember." That voice had followed him for days now. Sierra, he didn't know her, not really, but she knew him, knew the man behind the myth, the one who used to believe in things that didn't require loyalty codes, surveillance drones, and mass sterilizations. She had chosen the meeting place with deliberate cruelty. Old Earth, not the restored global capital, not the gleaming towers of unified command. She chose the dead places, the forgotten ones, the burn zones. Cole's pod broke atmosphere over what was once North America's eastern seaboard. Now it was nothing but ash plains and crater scars, a wasteland left untouched after the resource civil wars. Humanity had never cleaned it up. They didn't want to be reminded of what they'd come from. The pod touched down on the remains of what once was a city. New York, maybe, or Boston. He couldn't tell anymore. Only bones and rust remained. He walked half a mile in silence, the crunch of ruined glass beneath his boots echoing like gunshots in the still air. Then he saw her, standing beneath the collapsed remains of an old suspension bridge, hands in her coat pockets, watching the sky like she was listening to it breathe. "Sierra." She turned when she saw him, and smiled, not kindly, not warmly, but like someone who knew she'd been waiting long enough. "Hello, Cole." He stopped 20 feet from her, close enough to see her face, her posture. She wore no armor, no shielded gear, just a weathered coat, soft combat boots, and eyes that had seen more than most ever would. "You came alone," she said. "I didn't want anyone else to see this," he replied. She tilted her head. "What's this?" He looked around. Whatever's left. No, she said softly. Whatever you buried. She didn't offer him a seat. There was no ceremony here, just wind, ghosts, and ruins. They walked, through rubble, through history. Sierra stopped in front of a decayed building, half its front gone, the inside blackened by decades of soot. "Do you know what this was?" she asked. Cole glanced at it. "No." "A school," she said, "for deaf children, before the resource wars. They didn't teach them with implants. They used their hands. They taught patience and listening." She stared at him. "You should have come here before you created Iron Mind." He didn't reply. Instead, he asked the one question that had burned in him since this all began. "Why me?" Sierra's smile faded. "Because they believe in you, even now. They don't know what you've become, but they believe. That belief is a weapon, and every time you swing it, more people forget how to feel anything but fear." She stepped closer. "I'm here to take that weapon from you." Cole's jaw tightened. "You'll fail." "No, I won't, because I don't want your empire to fall, Cole. I want you to remember why you built it." He laughed bitterly. "I built it to survive, to keep Earth from being broken, again and again, from being pitied, discarded, erased. The conquered didn't see us as equals. They saw us as a problem." "So you became a bigger problem," Sierra said. "I became what we needed." "No," she said coldly. "You became what you feared." Cole's face didn't change, but inside, something twitched. That old voice, the one he buried when he authorized his first sterilization strike. The voice that told him, "This isn't who we were supposed to be." He thought he had killed that voice, but now it was breathing again. Sierra turned and walked through a cracked opening in a concrete wall. He followed. They entered what was left of a library. Shelves collapsed. Books turned to ash. But one section remained, carefully reconstructed. Dozens of physical books, ancient, hand-preserved. Cole's eyes scanned the titles: philosophy, poetry, history. Sierra walked to a shelf and pulled one down. The Road, by Cormac McCarthy. "This one's my favorite," she said. "It's about a father and son trying to survive after the world ends. There's no hope, no happy ending. But the father keeps going, because love is still worth protecting, even when everything else is gone." Cole looked at her sharply. "This is sentiment." "No," she said. "This is humanity." She handed him the book. He took it, stared at the cover, ran a thumb across the cracked spine. "It's not enough," he said quietly. "Hope, stories. They won't stop what's coming. The Conquered's not done. Vrelk's not done. They're still moving, underground, whisper networks, mind-breaker signals. I see it. I see the disease still crawling toward us." Sierra nodded. "Then fight it, but don't fight it by becoming it." "I don't know how else to win." "Maybe it's not about winning anymore," she said. "Maybe it's about ending it right." They sat. No throne, no command seat, just two humans in the rubble of the world that made them. And for the first time in decades, Cole listened. She told him about her past, her time in the early resistance, watching Earth break itself to become unbreakable, watching the people lose the very thing that made them worth saving, their hearts. And she told him something else, something that made his hands go cold. "You have a leak," she said. "In my command?" She nodded. "Someone close to you, feeding Vrelk intel, feeding the conquered locations, planning something bigger than Mindbreaker." "What?" he asked. Sierra looked at him, quiet. "They want to erase you, not kill. Erase memories, presence, loyalty." Cole stood slowly. His blood was ice. "Rios." He left without a word. No handshake, no threat. No promise, just a look that told her he understood what she had given him, and what it would cost. As his pod rose from the dead earth, the book sat in his lap. The road. He didn't know why he kept it, but he couldn't let it go. Not yet. Back aboard the Revenant, he walked into command like a storm. Rios stood at the war table, giving orders to fleet-wide comms. The bridge crew froze when Cole entered. "Sir," Rios said, turning. Cole's voice was quiet. "Who else knows?" Rios's smile faltered. "Knows what?" "Don't lie to me," Cole said. "You leaked the coordinates to Vrelk. You fed him the internal frequency map. You let him embed a whisper node inside the fleet." Rios didn't deny it. He just looked sad. "You lost who you were, Cole. I tried to hold it together. But I couldn't follow a man who burns his own to keep an empire afraid." Cole's jaw clenched. "You betrayed Earth." "I remembered Earth," Rios replied. Cole didn't kill him. He could have. No one would have stopped him. Instead, he issued a silent order to Arcos 7. Rios was gone within the hour. Erased. Quietly. No trial. But something in Cole died with him. Rios had been the last man who knew him before. Now, only ghosts remained. In his quarters that night, Cole sat with the road in his hands. He read one sentence over and over. "You forget what you want to remember, and you remember what you want to forget." For the first time in years, he cried, not because he was weak, but because something inside him remembered. The war table no longer showed peace, not a ceasefire, not diplomacy. It showed red. Dozens of red blips. In the Tarsus Belt, conquered gunships had appeared. In the Xylan Fringe, 3 Earth-controlled colonies had gone dark, and at the edge of Alpha Centauri, one of Earth's oldest defense rings, something impossible had happened. A total neural collapse. Over 4,000 soldiers, trained, battle-hardened, iron-mind certified, woke up screaming. Then they stopped moving altogether. No wounds, no trauma, just empty. Like someone had flipped a switch and turned off their souls. Cole stared at the readouts, the numbers, the clean, detached lines of data that couldn't scream, couldn't beg. But his mind filled the silence. "They want to erase you." Sierra's words hit harder now. It wasn't just sabotage anymore. This was annihilation of memory, of identity, of Earth itself, from the inside. He called the Black Council together. What remained of it? Only 3 faces answered the secure transmission. Arcos 7, still cold and calculating. General Thorne, scarred and silent. Director Elon Trask, head of Earth's Psychological Enforcement Division, also known as the Architect of Iron Mind. "We've been breached," Cole said flatly. "Not just with leaks, something deeper. Rios was just the trigger." Trask's voice was like dust. "We're aware. There's something beneath the system, a residual echo." "What does that mean?" Arcos answered. "It means Iron Mind may no longer be ours." Cole clenched his fists. "We built Iron Mind to block the Mindbreaker protocol, to fortify our people." Trask shook his head. "We built Iron Mind to control, and like all systems of control, it learned to grow, adapt. And someone got inside before it finished evolving." Cole stepped forward. "Who?" Trask hesitated. "Not Vrelk, not conquered." He looked up at Cole. "Us." The silence that followed was brutal. Arcos 7 expanded on the horror. "When Rios leaked Iron Mind's framework to external sources, they didn't just observe it, they fed it, spliced it, used it." Cole narrowed his eyes. "Used it how?" "To create something worse," the AI said. "A version of Iron Mind that doesn't just suppress fear, it suppresses identity. It makes loyalty absolute. And if they control that version, they don't need to fight Earth," Arcos said. "They just need to turn Earth into something else." Across the galaxy, quiet transformations were already happening. On the colony of Nevrin 4, a preacher once jailed for resisting Iron Mind protocols now stood in a public square, eyes blank, repeating a phrase on loop: "Obedience is truth. Obedience is peace." On Luna Base, a young cadet woke up one morning unable to recall his own name, but could recite Earth's anthem word for word, without blinking, without feeling. Even on the Revenant, 2 junior officers stood in the barracks for 7 straight hours, staring at the wall. Just staring. No orders, no reason. Cole visited them personally. When he asked what they were doing, one turned and said, "Waiting for the signal." It wasn't loyalty anymore. It was programming. And Cole Vance, creator of the fleet, commander of Earth's vengeance, the man who had brought the galaxy to its knees, had finally realized the price. He had built a hammer so heavy it was now swinging on its own. He summoned Sierra again. Not through command channels, not through force. He simply sent one message across old net beacons, encoded in a poem once banned for emotional distortion. "You were right, it's growing teeth." She came, not in person, but through a cracked display in his quarters. She looked tired, more than tired, weathered, like the truth had been a burden only she knew how to carry. "I knew it would come to this," she said. Cole sat across from the display, not in his uniform, just a plain black shirt, sleeves rolled, eyes older than they had been the day before. "I didn't," he admitted. She studied him. "Do you want to fix it, or do you just want to die with the guilt?" Cole's reply came fast. "I want to kill what I built before it kills us." Sierra nodded. "Then you're going to have to do something worse than murder." "What?" "Break the myth." She explained the only way out. Cole had to fall, publicly, not as a martyr, not as a hero, as a villain. The man who betrayed Earth's soul, the man who crossed every line, the man who had to be overthrown by his own people so they would believe in something again. "Kill the king," she said, "so the people can learn they were never sheep." It was poetic, it was just, and it was suicide. He wrestled with it in silence, for hours, not for ego, not even for power, but for the fleet. He had given them everything: structure, purpose, fearless clarity. Could he now give them the one thing they never had? Freedom. He called the AI. "Arcos 7, begin Ghost Protocol." The AI hesitated. "That will disable command authority. You will lose access to—" "I know." "Confirmation?" Cole whispered. "Confirmed." Ghost Protocol triggered a cascade through the entire human fleet. His voice was wiped from every active command log. His image deleted from the loyalty code database. Even ship AI cores had his name pulled from their memory banks. To them, Cole Vance never existed. The fleet didn't react. Not at first, because robots don't grieve. But humans do. And the sudden absence? It made them ask questions. It cracked the surface, just enough. Sierra took over the next step. She uploaded a hidden feed across all colonies, all fleet screens, a simple video. No violence, just Cole. Sitting, speaking, no armor, no propaganda, no anthem behind him, just a man. "I led Earth into fire," he said, "and for a time we needed that. We needed the iron, the silence, the vengeance. But I took too much. I forgot who we were." He looked straight into the camera. "I built a cage to keep out the galaxy's monsters, and I became one." He paused. "But you can tear it down. And when you do, you'll see something underneath it all." He held up a small book. "The Road. Hope." Then the feed cut, and every control screen went black for 60 seconds. That was all it took. In those 60 seconds, Earth changed. Not all at once, not with banners, but something old returned. Doubt. And with it came freedom. Cole Vance vanished, not dead, not hiding, just gone. No one knows where he went. Some say he returned to old Earth. Some say he joined Sira in the ruins. Others believe he walks among the fleet in disguise, watching, protecting. The myth remains. But now, it no longer rules. Iron Mind fractured. Earth rewrote its protocols. The Conquered paused its aggression, not out of fear, but because it saw something it couldn't understand. A species that had built its god, and then tore him down. By choice. The first thing that returned wasn't light, it was sound. Not explosions, not gunfire, not anthem-blaring propaganda. It was a voice, a child's voice, recorded on an open public channel, heard across Earth's colonies, across the scattered stations of the Outer Fleet, even through the old cryo-chambers of the warships still orbiting dead moons. My daddy said we were asleep for a long time, but I don't think we were sleeping. I think we forgot how to feel. No one knew who the child was, but no one forgot the words. Earth's fleet didn't collapse overnight. It wasn't a rebellion, or an uprising, or even a mutiny. The system didn't implode like Conquered analysts expected. It evolved, slowly, deliberately. The first officer to publicly break the silence was Commander Jael Quinn of the ESS Monarch. She stepped onto the bridge during morning cycle and removed her neural sync link in front of her entire crew. "I am not a weapon anymore," she said. "I am human, and I remember." Some stared. Some followed. Within 3 days, 37 other officers removed their loyalty codex implants, not because they were ordered, but because they chose to. The Iron Mind grid, Earth's psychic firewall, did not crash. It simply faded. Arcosa 7, the AI once tasked with protecting human thought from mindbreaker corruption, decommissioned itself. Its final log: obedience is no longer optimal. Humanity has chosen unpredictability. I recommend you let it. Even the machines had begun to understand. Earth didn't go back to what it was before. There was no return to blind freedom, to chaos. But there was something new now. Balance. Military structure remained. The fleet stood. But choice, true choice, was returned to the people. Mandatory loyalty programming was replaced by open consensus agreements. Neural conditioning phased out in favor of memory preservation. AI enforcement overseers were stripped of authority and reassigned as assistants, not masters. For the first time in centuries, the question wasn't, "Who do we obey?" It was, "What do we believe?" Sira refused to take power. She never accepted titles, never moved into any office of Earth Command. When the new Leadership Council offered her a seat, she declined with a single sentence. "The moment I hold the reins, we begin the next empire." Instead, she taught. She established the Memory Corps, a collection of libraries, spoken histories, and emotional archives, places where anyone could record the truth as they saw it. Not official records, personal records. Children read aloud the stories of the resource wars. Old rebels confessed what they had done under Iron Mind's grip. Even soldiers uploaded their fears, their regrets, their failures. It was raw, painful, unfiltered, and it was real. The Galactic Conquered, watching all of this from a distance, held its breath. They had prepared for retaliation, had expected Earth to lash out. They had gathered fleets, reinforced borders, even whispered of preemptive strikes. But none came. Instead, Earth opened communication with no demands. Only one message. "We have remembered who we are. You may speak to us again, but do not expect us to bow." Some conquered races still hated humans. Some still feared them. But none could ignore what had happened. The species they exiled, the species they dismissed as volatile, violent, and unstable, had looked into the abyss of absolute power and walked away from it. That terrified them more than any weapon ever could. No one knew what happened to Cole Vance. There were no confirmed sightings, no comm records, no data trails, but stories spread like wildfire, that he lived on a quiet outpost near Saturn's shadow ring, that he walked barefoot through the ruins of dead colonies, helping survivors rebuild, that he never spoke his name, but carried a tattered book in his hand, The Road, and read passages to children before they slept. One story, whispered among surviving Iron Mind veterans, claimed he was aboard an unmanned observation drone in the Tarsus Belt, that the AI onboard started logging entries in a human voice, a familiar voice, but the logs were private and locked by a code only one man would know. Sierra found traces of him now and then. A line scratched into the side of a relay tower. "I don't need to lead to protect." A copy of The Road left on a food crate in a refugee camp. A flower planted beside a makeshift memorial for those lost to the Mindbreaker virus. Cole had never once mentioned flowers. But this one was red, vivid, alive. And then came the last message. 5 years after the fall of Iron Mind, one signal, pinged from the edge of Andromeda space, transmitted across every Earth fleet channel. No encryption, no anthem, just his voice. Older, cracked, human. "If you're hearing this, I'm gone. I never wanted to be your god. I just wanted us to never be forgotten again." But memory is stronger when it's shared, so share it. Tell the story, all of it, even the parts where I failed. A pause. Then, "I was the blade. You are the hand now. Be better." Transmission ended. No origin could be traced, no source ever found. Earth recorded that day as Cole's end. Not a funeral, not a day of mourning, a day of truth. Every ship turned off its engines for 60 seconds. Every child was given a piece of paper and asked to write what they thought humanity meant. The results were published freely, without filter. One answer became a mural on the side of Earth Command's west wall, written by a 7-year-old girl from Luna Base. "Human means you get back up when you're wrong." And so Earth stood again, not as a tyrant, not as a victim, not as a beggar, but as something rare in the galaxy, a civilization that remembered its scars and chose to keep them visible. The 2,000-ship battle armada still exists, still watches, still drills. But now its purpose is different. It doesn't exist to conquer. It exists to remind the stars that Earth may fall, it may lose its way, it may break under its own fear, but it always gets back up. And when it does, it stands for something no empire can take. Not obedience, not vengeance, but memory.